Hi, this video is for anybody who's not yet completed this week's assignment. So I'm going to give you a rundown of how we're going to do it now that the CyberGIS X platform isn't working right. So instead we're going to be moving over to something called Google Colab. So before we do that, let's get started by downloading the Python notebook. So as you can see in the instructions, I've put a link right here, and you can open that by right-clicking and clicking New Tab. And when we open that tab, you'll see this file here, and we'll just download that. The next thing we'll do is we'll go back to the assignment and right-click on this Google Colab link and open that in a new tab. Once we're in Google Colab, there's this introductory notebook. We are not going to use that today. Instead, what we're going to do is go to the top here where it says File and click Upload Notebook. Now, it may show you examples or recent or Google Drive. What we need to click on is Upload over here on the top right. What you should do is click Browse and find the notebook that I had you download, Python for GIS. Once that loads, we will start being able to do programming, but we will not have the data that we need, not all of it at least. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the top right here where it says Connect. And once that's done, we can upload data to this. So go back to our week instructions, and you'll see I've given the link here for the county zip file. So for this, we can click Download at the top, and now click Save File, not Open With. Now click OK, and you should see that this has been downloaded here. Okay, let's go back to Colab, and we can go to File. Actually, excuse me, we need to go to this little folder icon here on the left. Click on this, and now click on this button here, and this is to upload data. So what we're going to do is we're going to upload our county's data set, CB 2018, US County 20 meter. So what this is saying is that your file will not stay on the server, so that's okay. Next, what we're going to be able to do is we can run all of this code at once. So to do that, we go to Runtime, and then we click Run All. This will run all the code that I've provided. And if we go over it, we'll see here, this is going to unzip your files. As you can see, it's unzipped this zip file and made a folder here. Next, we're going to be installing some packages. Now you can see it's still installing packages. This is importing libraries from those packages. So you can see it's imported the library GeoPandas and given it the name GPD. Same here with pandas, it's imported it under the name PD. So if you had an issue later on, like PD is not available, that's saying that pandas is not being found for some reason. You can see I've also installed an interesting package here called census data, and I've imported the library census data. We're going to use that here in order to download census data from the census website without actually having to go to data.census.gov. Here we can see the header, which is the first 5 lines of the file. So this is county level, and for some reason it puts Mississippi as the first 5 lines. Here's an overview of all the tables that are in there. As you can see, the census contains a lot of information. We're only going to be using a few of these charts. Now we're going to look at all the different states that are available. As you see here are the names of the states, followed by the state ID number at the end. So, for example, if we wanted to do California, we would know that our state ID number is 6, 06 actually. Here we've decided to make it about Illinois. The thing that makes it about Illinois is this number 17. If you go back and look for Illinois here, you'll see that its state ID number is 17. You may be familiar with this already. So if you wanted to change the state from, say, Illinois to, say, the state of California, we could put in 06. The next thing that we needed to do is change here to 06 as well, if we wanted to make this about California. As you can see, when we loaded Illinois, we got all the counties in Illinois, which is 102 counties. We also are displaying here the percentage of the residents with a bachelor's degree. That's because this table here tells us the percentage if you looked on the Census Bureau's website. Today we're going to do a join, just like you did in ArcGIS. So we take our typical shapefile, and we joined it with the %bachelor file from the Census website. This line exported it to CSV, which is a common format that people like to use. You can see that it's been saved here under this name. Here we opened it again. And this is what happens when we display what's inside. We see all the information like we did before, but instead of a shapefile, it's just a CSV. Continuing, you can see that this will actually be joining the two together. Now if we plot out all the counties, if we wanted to read in all the counties, we would read the whole file. And if we plot it, we see that we get all the counties in the United States. It's a rather small map. And you can see that there's over 3,000 counties in the United States. The next thing that we're going to do is have a look at what we actually kept in our data frame. We load it using what's called GeoPandas with GPD, and we saved it to something called ILACS. Keep in mind the names of these doesn't actually matter. If I use ILACS and read in California data, the computer doesn't mind. You don't need to change this name unless you want to. Here we look at the column names. You can also see these columns right here, but it's a little bit ambiguous as to what they are. So you see here is state ID, this is the county ID, this is the name of the county, this is the total population, etc. With these columns, we can make any map that we want. So this is a map of the percent of residents who have a bachelor's degree. You might notice in Illinois there's a concentration around Chicago and around Springfield. This is just the shape itself. We're not plotting any of the actual columns. We're just plotting the shapes. I guess this is a repeat. Here's our percent 65 and over. As you can see up here, that's one of our columns as well. If we want, we could make this one about PCT black, the percentage of residents who are black. And you can see this is a very different map. We've got 65 and older map here. You might notice that there's a lot of young people around Chicago and more older people in rural areas. And here's our percent Hispanic. This might be useful for answering one of our questions today. I also want to show you how to get the centroids. So the function .centroid tells us what the centroid is. What it's doing is it's looking at the information provided all the way on the right side under polygon. and it's calculating the average as a x and y. Then if we plot it out, we get these dots. Keep in mind, the function to find the centroid is here. The function to plot the centroid is here. And the name of the data set is here. So these are three different parts. So in theory, when you're answering the question, keep in mind, this is the function that we're calling, not this. Next, we're going to save this as a shapefile. So if we want to, we can export it any given name. Mine, I just named it name. And this is a setup for the next part. The next part, we want to make an interactive map. We can kind of ignore this part, but what we're using here is a library called bokeh.io. Bokeh is really useful, but it's not technically a GIS package. That means, among other things, it doesn't have any way to handle different projections or to convert one projection to another. So again, we have our data set, and if we run all of these, you can see we're reading in our field, and we're giving it a palette to use. Spectral 6 in this case. Well, we'll stick with that. We'll give it some tools, and we'll give it a height and width, and a title. This is the things that'll show up when you put your mouse over any given county. And finally, you get sort of a legend. Finally, if we show the map, you can see that this is an interactive display of information. So here's our education attainment. And let's say we wanted to share this map with someone. We can also output the file. So we write the file to what's called HTML document. At this point, I believe that the HTML document has been written, so I'm going to try refreshing it here. Looks like it didn't write it, so let's try running this again. I'm going to hold Shift and Enter. Could be that it's in here. Well, I'm not seeing it. Maybe if we go up a file or up a directory. Well, that's okay. We don't need that for this assignment this week. Quickly, I want to go over the assignment. Earlier, I had you talking about things like reinventing the wheel. Reinventing the wheel is when we're trying to do work that others have done for us. So let's say, for example, if you wanted to do all of these things that I showed you to do, maybe you can refer to my work instead of trying to do it by yourself. Keep in mind the libraries that we use today are found at the top. So if I scroll all the way to the top, here's some of the libraries that we used. And here's the rest. And here's another one. When we want to make comments in the code, what we're doing is we're telling it to ignore that information. You do that with a hashtag. So if you want to make a comment, you could do hashtag this is a comment. And the code will be ignored, but the text will still be there to read. What we concatenated these two, what we took was what was in here and what was in here. And you can find the answer to this question when we look down below and you see we went from having just this and just this to having both combined here. So these are the things that both contain. Here's a good question because you may want to know this kind of thing in general. What you can do is you can just print the name, or you can use dot head. Either one is fine. When we're trying to find the centroid, remember, we're not trying to print, we're just trying to find the centroid. Finally, when you're rerunning your state, you don't need to change all the names. We just need to change the code up here. So we need to change it from the Illinois code, which was 17, to whatever your state ID number is. It can be found here. And so here we did it with California. And as you can see, if I run it again by going to runtime and run all, well, we might run into some errors. The first error is probably going to be with unzipping. Ah, yes, indeed. So it's asking us whether we want to rename it or none or all. So let's just do N because we already unzipped it. So I typed N and then hit enter. Now it can continue. As you can see, I haven't changed any of these names here. Even though we're doing California, I still left it on the name IL. That's okay. And you can see this is all California data. And when we make a map, we're left with a map of California. So let's say you were doing percent Hispanic in California. This would be the map that you need a screenshot. Finally, you get your interactive map of California with this. As you can see, it's kind of squished. If we wanted to make it look more normal, we can play with it manually, but it's not necessary. So let's try doing 600, and maybe it'll look a little bit more normal. Yeah, that looks okay. But as you can see, it's not really doing any kind of projection. We're just manually playing with the parameters here. Okay, finally, you see we have this HTML document saved here. What we can do is we can actually download that by clicking on this dot 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 here, and then click download. And then if we click save file or open with, but let's do save file, and then we save it, we can open this file, this HTML document, and it's an interactive map. So if you wanted to share this map with somebody, you can do that. And there's nice little tools here, which would allow you to save a screenshot of it, export it, and other nice little tools like that. If you have any questions about using Google Colab, or if you're having trouble with it, feel free to let me know. You can always email me. I hope this works out for you. And if you're having trouble, feel free to stop by my office hours or send me an email. Just let me know what issues you're having. Thanks a lot. Bye.